welcome. So we'll get started in just a second here, talking about some of my excitement around the seller-held mortgage market, and that is less competition, collateralized by things that you and I understand as real estate investors, particularly if you're a buy and hold investor. A nice, exciting way to get yields that are generally not attainable outside in such a secure investment. So really excited about that. We're going to talk about a few examples. We're going to talk about options to get started and how you might go about doing that. We'll talk about sharing a contract with you guys that you can use, that we use when we make offers on seller-held mortgages. And anything that is on your mind today, we'll discuss. So we'll go ahead right now. It's 5 after 12. I want to respect everyone's time. Appreciate you coming in and being on time. Let's go ahead and share screen here. There we go. Okay. Get rid of that side panel, but that's okay. So just so you know you're in the right spot, we're talking about seller-held mortgages today. It's called seller-held mortgages basics for beginners. It's an exciting area where you get to be the bank for a change, and you have all the fun stuff that the banks get without any of those headaches from your tenants. So you get payments collected, and you get your collateral insured, and you're listed as a loss payee. So all those good benefits that the banks enjoy, you get to enjoy with this investment. And so I want to take it kind of from the top here and talk to you a little bit about sources for notes, for mortgage notes. Sometimes getting started is sometimes difficult. But I want to assure you that this is a very doable thing. And we as investors, for those of you who've not gotten your first rental or who have made other investments, this investment is very easy to understand. You'll find it's very easy to price. If you can understand the financial calculator, that there's only 5 buttons that you have to understand to be able to be good at this. Once you understand those buttons, we'll go through an example today. Once you've done a few examples, you'll have it. And once you have it, you'll find out all you really need is a financial calculator, or you can download a financial calculator onto your iPhone or whatever phone it is you use, and have it on your phone top. So you can give mortgage note quotes anywhere you go, including on vacation if you want to. So let's talk a little bit about sources for notes. From my perspective, there's a number of sources for notes. And before you get started, you may want to jump online and take a look at a couple of online sources for notes. One of my favorite ones is paperstack.com. The reason that I like it is it's very easy to understand. It's very easy to read. It's available 24/7. They probably at any one time have 175 notes up there. And they've got good yields, anywhere between 8 and 12% usually. They sell performing, they sell non-performing. And so performing is notes where people are making their payments as agreed, mostly. And then non-performing are notes where maybe someone has stopped paying as agreed for an extended period of time. Sometimes those are called defaulted notes. And so if you have some time, jump on paperstack.com and take a look at what's available. It will help you. It may help define where you might want to purchase notes. We purchase notes exclusively in Georgia because we're based in Georgia. We understand the foreclosure laws here. It's a non-judicial foreclosure state. We understand collection laws here. We have background here. I think the thing that's special, one of the things that's special about Georgia is that's a non-judicial foreclosure state, which means if someone should stop paying for the low price of around $1,500, you can institute the entire process to basically get them out of the property and put it back into productive use, whatever that means. So, and that of course is the biggest concern that most folks have is, well, what if somebody completely stops paying and they ignore me? Well, the banks have thought about that one a lot, but wherever it is that you want to invest, I would suggest you get on paperstack.com. There are notes from all states there. And just take a look at what's available on the internet. Now, while that's a great place to get a feel for what's available and even buy some notes, my favorite is still direct mail to note sellers that are in your area of interest. So maybe you have an idea of the size of the mortgage note you may be interested in. You may be interested in smaller mortgage notes because you might want to put it in a self-directed IRA. These things are routinely handled in self-directed IRAs, all the way low note balances down to 5,000. Those are out there. And one source to get at those is notesellerlist.com. That gentleman, that firm has been doing this business for about the last 20 years, and they will sell you a lead list, whatever you want it to be. You can tell them the note sizes, the note states, the note counties if you want to. We tend to favor smaller notes just because that's an area where the big boys don't play. So the national note folks won't necessarily come in and buy lower balance notes because of the fixed costs associated with purchasing a note for them, but not for you and me. You and I have much lower costs. And we found ways, you can basically close for next to nothing. You may decide to have a title exam for $75 unlimited title exam, but you can also process these notes yourself. You don't have to have an attorney involved, but even if you do, it shouldn't cost you more than $750 for the full process. I like the concept where you're maybe the first person to reach out to a note seller and let them know that this opportunity is available for them to get a lump sum of cash for their note. And that's important to me, to be first and maybe the only that reaches out to them and contacts them and initiates that conversation. Because there's nothing less exciting to any investor than competition. Who wants competition? I want all the competition out of my way, right? So I can go in there and make the offer that I want for the note. And so for those of you, that's one way to do it. Now, the other thing is you can go on county websites, wherever it is that you live, and look and find on those. Sometimes it depends on the county. Every county is a little different, but they'll have real estate records in a lot of counties. And you can go on there and see. So in Cobb County, Georgia, where I live, all those real estate records are online. So I could potentially go on there and go down every street in the county looking for individual names in the grantee index. So the grantee is basically the bank in the state of Georgia when you're looking at deeds to secure debt, which is what you're talking about in the state of Georgia. That's the instrument that's filed at the courthouse that says to the world, I have a claim here. So you may have that option available too. So then that's a free way to get a look at potential notes, along with taking a look at paperstack.com. Notesdirect.com is another website that has some notes. I tend to favor Paperstack because it's a little easier, a little bit more user-friendly. The price for buying notes is very, very reasonable from Paperstack. So it's 1% of the note value or $250 as a minimum. So for those of us who purchased smaller notes, you might be paying $250, which it's a song for them to bring that kind of thing, because not only do you get the note, not only do you get the note, but they actually process it and close it for you and also do the due diligence for you, which to me is just a bargain. So let's talk a little bit more about sources for notes, a little bit more informal. So referrals. Let everyone know that you may be interested in buying notes in your part of the world. Keep your eyes and ears open. If you're part of a real estate investor association member, like if you're part of REI USA, you should let others know here, right? I want to buy notes. Make that, apparent. Lawyers, particularly real estate and probate attorneys, they're often good sources for notes. Why probate attorneys? Well, oftentimes when there's a death, there's a sale, and sometimes there's a note involved in that sale because so the family inherits a property and it has a lot of physical issues associated with it. Maybe they'd rather just sell it on a note than try to get the family together to try and figure out how to get everybody on the same page with respect to getting repairs done. What a pain when you've lost a loved one, right? Just not fun stuff at all. Fellow real estate investors, I can't emphasize this enough. Let them know. Let them know that you're the note person, or that you're interested in notes, or that you could help them on their deals. Because not only could you buy notes that have already been created, but you could also create notes. It's very easy to do both. And in fact, in terms of creating a note, you can create a note. You basically just tell the closing attorney what it is that you want in the note. So, the note balance, when's the late payment due? If it's not paid timely, what is the late payment, right? Investor to investor notes have a lot fewer regulations associated with them than when you're loaning to a homeowner. So you can create those as well, but it's good. It's a good practice to just let people know that you are interested in notes, and be open to that. So, whoops, I'm not quite ready to go off that. Okay. The other way is if you are a member of a credit union or a bank, or people who work at those institutions, tell them, hey, I might be interested in buying some of your notes. Now, the notes that they're probably most interested in selling are those that are in default. That kind of makes me giddy with excitement. Because I might just want that collateral that's underneath that note, and I'm willing to put in the effort to get that. At the same time, it's just one more lead source for you. And these things are out there. I mean, to the tune of $20 billion a year, these things are originated. And so while, yes, I know this is a go-go time and banks are lending money and all that good stuff, there's still a lot of people in this population that can't qualify for bank financing. And so owner financing continues to be in vogue and done quite frequently. So let's talk a little bit about the process here. As we talk about sources of notes. First off, does anyone have any questions, comments? As we go here, okay. All right, so let's talk about process. So let's say that you got a phone call comes in on a lead from a direct mail. Maybe you've mailed postcards, maybe you've written yellow letters by hand to to people who own notes in an area in which you're interested. In our case, that's pretty much the entirety of the state of Georgia with some exceptions related. And we'll talk about those in a minute. So say you get a phone call and this is from a real live example. From direct mail. It's basically a modular home on an acre of land in Toccoa, Georgia, which is way up in the mountains of North Georgia. And so the first thing you want to do is take a peek at that thing. What does that thing look like? Can you get on a website? You can get on Zillow. Zillow has sales all the way back. So you can get a peek at this little rascal. You can also go to see what the tax appraised value of this of this property is by going to the county website, and they will show you a picture of it and also what their evaluation is of how much this thing is worth. And so this particular modular home on an acre of land in Toccoa is tax appraised for $45,000. Now, I've checked out the area, right? Because my biggest concern as it relates to buying notes is, but it's not if someone defaults. My concern is if they default and they live in an area of the world where the population is shrinking and no one wants to move, what am I going to do if for some reason I end up with this house through the foreclosure process? If nobody wants to move there because they're not plentiful jobs, there are a fair number of places where you need to keep that in mind. And it's real easy to figure it out, right? You can pull statistics on, you can look at what the census says, right? The city data will tell you whether the population is growing, the population is shrinking, the economic base is expanding. You can go to jobs websites and see what sort of jobs are available in these communities. The most important thing with respect to that is that you want to economically qualify it, because anytime you look at a note, you need to ask yourself the question, would I want to own this? Because there is a potential chance that you might end up owning it. So you want to go in with eyes wide open. And so that's important. So to me, that's the worst case scenario is if I purchased a note in an area that was not very economically sound, I would have concerns about reselling it. Now, there may be some circumstances where the price is just so good that you say, well, I'll just take that on. And that's going to be my fun piece. If that thing goes into default, I'm just going to get it back and I'll sell it again on owner financing. It may take a little longer to sell, may not have quite the profile of the customer that I'm looking for. But you do want to qualify your area based on economics, because you don't want to be that guy with the house that never sells that. And there are places, even in Georgia, which is, Atlanta couldn't be any more go-go than most cities. I mean, it's just banging. It's just the amount of building, the population growth is amazing. But there are many parts of this state that are economically in a situation, and one must tread lightly around that, or at least understand what the dynamics are there with respect to supply and demand. So with our process, so first you get this call in off your postcard, or say you wrote them a letter. That's what we do. We write letters. We customize them by hand, because we found that when we address those envelopes ourselves, you know what, they're more apt to open them. And if they're more apt to open them, they're more apt to call you. But keep in mind, this is not going to get a roaring response rate. You're talking 2 to 5 per 100. Okay. So, but you can do quite well with that, because how many notes do you really need? So this note was originated in 2015. The first payment was made in May of 2015. Now, first thing right off the bat, what do you see? Well, what I see in this case is I see a note that has been in existence for over 5 years, and I presume they are paying timely. Now, you're going to do some research on that, because you really want to know that. That's important, right? But they're paying at least timely enough that there's been no reported defaults or anything like that. And that owner, or the note owner, will typically be quite honest with you. You will find that people are very honest with you. They will also tell you the reason that they're selling their note, if they're selling their note. In this particular case, this lady is moving to Europe in a year, and she is divesting herself of assets in the United States. Of course, the first thing I said to her was, where in Europe are you moving, and will you take me with you? Because I love Europe. I've only been once, but boy, I could live in Europe. It's so nice, except the winter. Of course, Americans only go in the summer usually, but So you want to find out a little bit about, like, what's the motivation? Like, is there any real motivation? And I would describe her motivation as kind of middle of the road. She's not moving to Europe. She's not moving to Europe next week. She's not moving to Europe next month. She's moving to Europe next year. So right now, I would describe her mental state as shopping, right? She's shopping to see. Well, good, because I wouldn't want to have to hassle with this tiny little note I've got over in North Georgia if I'm going to be enjoying Spain, which is where she said she was headed. So kind of a gut check here, right? First, you're like, wow, that thing has got a lot of time and service. So this lady, whoever since the lady is a payer, the lady is a note owner. But the lady who's making the payments, it's making them timely. She's paid down a good bit, as you'll see in just a second, which is another important thing. So then you go and you research that note. And this is where you kind of get a hold of that little five. If you can master those 5 keys, the world is your oyster, I promise you. Not just in notes, but in understanding cash flows and that sort of thing, whether that's for retirement or anything like that. So the loan balance on this, and you will want to research this. You'll either need to get this from them or look this up on the public records. I can't tell you how much I think you should look this up in the public records first before you call an individual, because you will oftentimes know more than they do, and you will stop them from having to be embarrassed to tell you, I don't know, and have to call you back several times. Because to me, the object of this first call is to gain rapport, and be responsive, and quite frankly, is to give them a quote for their note. And that's what we shoot for, is like when we call them and we talk to them, we'll give you a quote for your note right up front. Because if it's an impulse sale, and you never know if it is or not, sometimes you think it is. Now, if it's around Christmas, let me tell you something. We've had guys call us looking for, I would call it jewelry money for their wives and girlfriends and stuff like that. That's the ultimate impulse sale, right? So you got to move on that. That man will take $9,500 for his, $23,000 mortgage, but you need to move, because I need this. Mama needs a diamond ring next week, So you always keep in mind that you may be dealing with an impulse sale, or maybe they're just tired of messing with collecting the payments, because 180 payments is 15 years. And I know time moves fast, but 15 years is slow when you're collecting those note payments. So in this process, you're kind of going through the idea of, like what, I want to understand her motivation. I want to try to meet her need. And I want to kind of see where she's at. So looking at the real estate records for that county, I was able to find out, okay, this loan balance was originally $32,000, 15-year note, 180 payments. So in calling her back, because the one thing that is difficult to pick off the public records in Georgia anyway is, so the promissory note, which is the thing that does not get filed at the courthouse to show evidence of a claim, that is filed nowhere. And so oftentimes the deeds to secure debt in this state don't have the interest rate for the mortgage in them. So you have to take a little guess if you're going to try and figure out what you want to offer, or you're going to have to ask the owner, which is fine. They usually know. If they don't, this may be a 2-call discussion, right? So, and sometimes they'll give you the dollar amount, and then you have to use your financial calculator to back into what that interest rate is. But after looking online, I've could figure out that there were 106 payments remaining of the 180 that were to be paid. The current balance was $22,122. Now, in talking to the note owner, it turns out that rate is about 6%. She told me her payments are $268.30 per month. So you can calculate this while you're talking to the note holder on the phone. In fact, I have no issue with respect to asking for a potential note seller. Can you hold for a second while I calculate what I can pay for this note? And I'll tell you right now, and we can move forward from there. Don't be bashful about that. People prefer to know up front. Now, their responses will be interesting, depending upon what it is. So, as a note investor, you have to decide what your desired yield is. And your desired yield is going to determine what it is that you offer for the note. And so we're going to go through this simple example here through the time value of money calculations. This may be a review for some, but I want you to understand, and I want to remind every time we have one of these class what these things count for. So it's the 5 keys: PV, present values. In our case, that's going to be the current mortgage balance. Future value, that's often going to be 0 if you're trying to buy the entire note. And we're going to start out with giving her an entire note quote because it sounds like that's probably what she would want. A number of periods, which in our case is going to be months. The interest rate per period, so that's a rate per month, not the per annual rate. And the payment is the payment per period. So that's typically going to be monthly payment for us. So let's look at this Toccoa example. So the first thing you want to do is see that you can recreate the payment that the mortgage owner has told you that they are receiving. And that's important because if you can't recreate it, something's up, right? If you're not close, I mean, if it's $1 or $2 off a month, no big deal. But if it's, 15 or 20 or $30 off, something's wrong. What's wrong? What am I getting wrong? You're going to have to question the potential seller a little better about it. So you input 32,000, which was the initial present value of the mortgage. So the initial mortgage balance. You input 0 into the future value because when it's paid off, it'll be 0. You input 180 into N because that's the number of periods over which the mortgage goes. You put 6 divided by 12 into I because you're converting that 6% annual rate into a monthly rate by dividing it by 12 months. So then you hit compute payment and you get that $268.30 a month. So you've kind of confirmed that, yeah, that's okay. We're in the same ballpark. That's good. That's real good. So, and then decision time comes. So, well, we're not quite there yet. Let's talk about the present value of the note. Present. So now you determine the current principal balance of the note. And so by that, so there's 108 payments total, 74 have been made to date, there's 106 remaining. So in the N, you punch in 106, okay, denoting payment 106. And 106 remaining, so 106 payments remaining. And then you hit compute present value. So that gives you the mortgage balance today. So it's 22,124. Okay. So now here comes decision time. So what yield would you like? Well, it's a great question. And it's something that you have to decide as an investor. We typically pick 15 to start. In particular situations like that, where it's a modular home on an acre of land in North Georgia, we think that that's reasonable because we find that we do well with that. So we pick 15%. And so if you desire 15%, then you have to input the 15% divided by 12 because it's the periodic rate now, right? So it's the rate per month. You punch that in 1.25 into I, and then you compute the present value. So you're telling the computer, you're telling the little calculator, compute the present value if I want this investment to yield 15% until maturity. And so in this case, that gets you a desired, that gets you a present value or an offer of $15,712. Now, any cost of closing, you would want to reduce this number by as well if you're still want to get, if you're out to get the 15% yield. So if it's $700 in closing costs, so it's $15,012, for instance. So in that, so you've got that. So what we do is we go ahead and we fire away with that offer. Now, I got to be honest with you. I don't care what your offer is. It's unlikely to be accepted on the first pass. And so oftentimes what we'll do is provide them with that offer and try to clarify. And they would most definitely say something like, "Oh, I couldn't do it for that," or "Da da da da," "Rah rah rah, you're a robber baron," or whatever. Try to look aside whatever it is they say, even if they curse you and your mom or whatever. But try to stay positive and polished, and offer, "Hey, would you like a written contract with that offer?" And if they say yes, then you fill out a written contract, get their email address, and send them that written offer. Now, we have a written contract template that you are welcome to use. I only ask that you email me for it so that I can send it to you directly. It's a couple of pages, 5 pages, something like that. It basically gives, it says not only what our offer is, but the items that we need for them to send to us so we can do our due diligence. Because the offer is just the first part of what it is that you're up to, right? So if you reach agreement, or even potentially reach agreement, you're going to need these documents to see them, right? For one, you're going to need that promissory note, because as things stand, that promissory note has the entirety of the agreement in it. And the great thing about a promissory note is they're usually like 2 or 3 pages, very easy read, written standard English. They're all written the same. And part of that's because the housing and urban development folks got involved with that and specified, a typical note and promissory note. And so when you read it, it'll make complete sense to you. And if you have ever received a mortgage, you've got a promissory note in your file along with the deed to secure debt, or whatever it is the deed is, whatever it is the instrument is in your state that secures the property by announcing that the bank has a claim with respect to a loan down at the county courthouse or wherever the real estate records are kept in your county or your jurisdiction. So by all means, just shoot me an email, and we're happy to share that contract with you. We're also happy to, give you any information or advice you're seeking, evaluate a deal or whatever it is that you need. We want you to be successful in buying notes. The competition in this field is, it's just not, it's nothing anywhere near what the competition is for single family housing. And a lot of people don't get involved at all. In fact, so it ends up, we know note brokers, we know people that are note brokers, and we share deals all the time. And even swap information to improve our operations. And so we encourage you to do that too, because there's always something changing in all these businesses, whether it's real estate, heck, even chicken processing plants or whatever. There's always something changing, and the note business is no different. It's getting much easier to transact notes than it used to be. It's getting much easier to do your due diligence, but you still do want to do your due diligence. It's important. You want to know what you're getting. That doesn't mean that you have high standards. You can have as low a standard as you want, but you do want to know what you got going in so that you can handicap what it is that you're about to do. Most times you buy these notes and they perform wonderfully, particularly one where you've had, someone who's been making payments for 5 years, and she's so far on the way to getting a paid off property. Yeah, no worries about it. But what if she did waltz off into the dead of night, and I have an asset worth $45,000 and I paid $15,000 for, and I can foreclose on for about $1,500. I see somebody in chat. Let's see here. Are there any tax advantages of buying or selling or owning notes? So, Deborah, let me ask you this. Compared to other forms of investments, or how is the investment taxed? So from a tax standpoint, it is interest income from notes. And so it is taxed differently than W-2 income. So, or job income. So that they call job income earned income. So you pay an income tax plus a Social Security and Medicare tax. Typically, with respect to the passive income that you derive from notes, it is taxed as interest income and is not taxed for Social Security or Medicare purposes. As it relates to buy and hold housing, it doesn't have the tax advantage of being able to write off depreciation, because there is no depreciation of a note. It's just a financial asset. So from my perspective, it is, does that make sense? Good. Okay. So from a tax standpoint, it's better than my job income. But it doesn't have the write-offs that active real estate investing has in it. So awesome. Okay, great. Thank you, Deborah, for the question. So as to continue on with our discussion here, just so you're likely to get an objection to your offer. And so it behooves you to be able to be poised and to try to understand what the objection is to your offer. Oftentimes, objections can be overcome. You can reformat your offer. So for instance, in this case, if someone kicked too hard, you can offer to buy a portion of the note. And the technical name for that is a partial. So if she and I couldn't get together on price at some point here, I could offer to buy a partial portion of that note. And there's some real advantages to that, in that you get the investor gets a higher yield, and the note seller does not have to take a discount. So if you were to, I could offer to buy half of that note, half of the number of payments for half of the balance. I can offer to buy a quarter of those payments, so the next quarter payments for a quarter of that balance. And while it doesn't sound necessarily rational, what you see is that when you make a partial offer, they don't accept the discount, but you do get an enhanced yield. In fact, you will get, particularly on a quarter partial, you will get approximately 4 times the coupon rate, or 4 times the mortgage loan rate that you would in a straight note sale. Now, in this case, So I would say that it behooves you to um, try and work through um, what an objection might be and see where you might be able to come together. But also keep in mind that uh, even the smallest of these notes is a fair amount of money to anybody, right? $10,000 is a lot of money. I don't care if you're a millionaire, billionaire, whatever. $10,000 is still a lot of money. So even a small note, it's a fair amount of money. So oftentimes you're going to um, want to and need to stay kind of in touch. Recognize that this is not a one-touch operation. That this is going to be you'll probably be talking to this potential note seller a number of times. You may go back and forth, and that's okay. Um, just be aware of that and recognize that. Don't let it bother you that not every time that you call do you have a situation where they're going to accept your offer. So just stay in touch. So you may continue to market those folks. We want to do that. So looks like I'm repeating myself on this slide, but I do want to emphasize that when you reach out on your own and you negotiate these things on your own, the first offer probably not going to be accepted. That's okay. Stay in touch. Things change, times change, people change. Collecting no payments never does. It's a slow track, right, for a lot of people. And dealing with people who, maybe not paying as timely as you would like, sometimes that can be frustrating. Or maybe you've got that money and you want them to they want to buy a boat. $10,000 will get you a good boat, right? So there may be big ticket items that come up that they want. And just a reminder to stay cordial with them if you go about this process. Now, that's why some people really like the internet stuff. You're doing business with people who really they want to sell their note and you want to buy it. My only issue with that is the type you do need to still do your due diligence and recognizing that your best deals are probably those that you will negotiate yourself as opposed to something that would be on a website somewhere. But that's okay. It may not matter to you. You may be perfectly happy with an 8% yield, 10% yield. That's a good yield, particularly in this low interest rate environment. Safe investment. Doesn't require you to watch it. You can stick it in your tax advantaged account. Advanta does self-directed IRA, so does Equity Trust, so does Quest. All these people, they're so used to dealing with these that it's not a bad way to go. So even if you do direct lending yourself, it's a good way to go. One thing I like about purchasing other notes is that I have the ability to get a discount on it, so my yields can typically be higher. And I am looking for a little higher yield. I think that even though notes aren't as risky as I would say as Wall Street is, I still want my yields to be up there to what that market has given me. So I think they're comparable. The other thing about notes too is if you buy a note and you collect on it for a while and you don't like it, you know what you can do? You can sell that note. You can sell that note to others. You can sell that note online yourself. PaperStack will let you sell it. So there's a number of things about it. I love the flexibility. And I hope that you have gotten something good from this